The cafeteria doors slammed open, the sound sharp enough to hush the room. Trays paused mid-air. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. And there she stood, Emily, Rivera, 19. Quiet second-hand clothes hanging loose on her frame, her shirt torn clean down the back. Across from her, Brandon Whitaker lay motionless on the floor, the son of a billionaire crumpled like laundry eyes wide with disbelief. He had flown 20 feet across waxed tile, the result of one perfect judo throw. The quiet girl had moved like lightning. Now the whole school stared like they'd seen a ghost. If you've ever been told you weren't enough, if you've ever been humiliated, looked down on, mocked for what you couldn't afford, you'll want to stay. Because Emily didn't just survive, she fought back, and what came next changed everything. But before justice hit the floor that day, it started with silence. Let's go back to the very first day Emily arrived at Crawford Academy. Emily Rivera arrived at Crawford Academy on a cold September morning behind the wheel of a sun-faded Corolla with a cracked windshield and a back seat filled with textbooks, hand-me-downs, and a box of her mother's homemade tamales. The school looked more like a private resort than a place for learning. Iron gates with gold lettering, red brick buildings draped in ivy fountains that danced as if choreographed. Parents in tailored suits kissed children goodbye before stepping into Audis and Bentleys. Emily parked her car by the maintenance shed, the only place left for overflow parking. She sat for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel. "Just 2 years," she whispered. "Get through 2 years." She had earned her place there. Top scores, essays that made admissions officers cry, a need-based scholarship that covered everything. Everything but belonging. Emily pulled her worn duffel bag, the same one she'd carried to community judo classes since she was 11, over her shoulder and crossed the manicured lawn alone. Inside, the air smelled of money leather perfume, polished wood. The students looked like catalog models, pressed blazers, shoes that cost more than her entire closet. They moved in groups, laughing easily, names like Hadley and Parker echoing through the halls. No one looked her way. No one needed to. They already knew she didn't belong. Her first class was advanced literature. While others talked about their summer trips to Tuscany and Aspen, Emily kept her eyes down, her notebook open. Her summer had been shifts at the bakery at 5 a.m., then evening shifts at the nursing home scrubbing floors to save for books. She didn't speak unless called on. Even then, her voice was soft. One girl, tall, blonde Cartier bracelet dangling, asked, "Where'd you transfer from?" Emily hesitated. "Public school." She left out the rest, the eviction notices, the unpaid hospital bills after her father's heart attack the night she'd given up her last competition to work extra hours and buy medicine for her brother. At lunch, she sat alone. Not because she chose to, but because there was nowhere else to sit. Tables were filled with friendships built at prep schools and country clubs. She ate her packed sandwich while listening to conversations about ski trips and private SAT tutors. No one was cruel, not yet. They simply ignored her. But Emily was used to that. At the judo center back in Albuquerque, she had learned how to blend in, how to stay small until she stepped on the mat. Then everything changed. Mr. Daniels, her coach, used to say, "Observation is your first weapon. Know their rhythm before you step forward." So Emily watched, listened, took notes, not just in class, but in life. Then the small things began. A note in her locker, thrift store queen. Her books knocked from her hands always with a smile and a "so sorry." Her lunch tray nudged off the table, spilling soup onto her last clean sweater. No teachers saw it. The cameras didn't catch it. It was always just out of frame. But Emily recorded it, every detail. A habit from judo. She kept a small leather journal, names, dates, incidents. Photos of ruined homework, stained shirts, hurtful words. She told herself she'd endure it, graduate quietly, escape to a college where merit mattered more than money. But, deep down, something was shifting. Each laugh at her expense, each shove in the hallway, Each snide remark from Brandon Whitaker and his friends had all landed not just on her body, but in her bones. Still, Emily said nothing. She remembered Coach Daniel's voice. The first throw doesn't happen on the mat. It happens in the mind. Know when to yield. Know when to stand. So she walked the halls of Crawford with lowered eyes, tightened jaw, and quiet determination. Not weak, just waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the right witness. Waiting to stop yielding. By mid-October, the days at Crawford had grown colder, but not colder than the looks Emily received in the hallways. The whispers became sharper, the laughter louder. Brandon Whitaker had made her his favorite target. He didn't need a reason. Emily's existence alone was threat enough. A girl from a bakery in New Mexico outscoring his friends, taking up space in the school his family practically owned. He didn't touch her, not at first. He didn't have to. His words did the work. Nice shoes, Rivera. Goodwill got a new shipment. I didn't know scholarships came with a smell. Each jab landed with surgical cruelty, followed by smirks from his loyal shadows Logan Pierce and Troy Mitchell. Emily never responded. Never raised her voice. But every night she opened her journal. She documented it all. Coach Daniels had once told her, discipline isn't staying silent. It's knowing the right time to speak. Then came the week before Thanksgiving. Emily found her locker pried open, her notebooks thrown across the floor, and inside her one good blazer bought with 3 weeks of bakery tips for her college interviews slashed to pieces. Pinned to the fabric was a folded note in Brandon's unmistakable scrawl, maybe you should transfer back to wherever charity cases come from. She stood there quietly. People walked by, glanced, then looked away, but no one said a word. Emily gathered her things slowly, methodically, like ritual. She took a photo of the scene. She placed the note carefully between the journal's pages, and she walked not to class, but to the dean's office. Dean Caldwell barely glanced at the evidence. He sat beneath a photo of himself as a Crawford lacrosse captain next to a plaque donated by the Whitaker family. "Emily," he said with forced patience, "Brandon is under a lot of pressure right now. Let's not escalate something that might be a misunderstanding." He folded his hands. Sometimes students from different backgrounds misread the culture here. Emily left that office smaller than she'd entered. That night she unlocked the bakery after hours. Her mother had gone home to rest. The ovens were cold. The silence was thick. She rolled up her sleeves. She took out the sacks of flour, 50 pounds each, and began footwork drills between the mixers. The muscle memory returned like an old friend. Her breath fell into rhythm. Her palms remembered the grip, the angles, the center of balance. She had been 12 when she won her first regional title, 14 when scouts whispered Olympics. Then her father's heart failed, bills piled up, and the dojo became a luxury they could no longer afford. Emily never complained. She just stopped showing up, and the world forgot her, but she hadn't forgotten herself. The following week, Brandon escalated again. He posted an image of her wearing a fast food uniform, her face blurred but her name tagged, captioned Crawford's scholarship queen serving fries to buy her textbooks. Stay elite, folks. The post spread like wildfire. But this time, Emily didn't flinch. She screenshotted it. She backed up her journal to the cloud. She set her phone to record with a shortcut. Then she waited. December 2nd. The cafeteria was full. The room buzzed. Emily sat alone, her food untouched. Her phone was propped against a water bottle, its lens pointed straight ahead. Brandon entered like he always did, loudly, surrounded by followers. "Hey, charity case," he called across the room. "Heard you've been whining to the dean." That true Emily didn't even look up. "I documented harassment with evidence. That's not whining. That's reporting." The room fell silent. Brandon crossed the floor, red rising in his face. He grabbed her backpack, dumped it on the floor, her books, her journal, her quiet dignity scattered for everyone to see. He picked up the journal and flipped through it. "What's this your little trauma diary?" He shoved her. That was when Emily stood, slowly, calmly. "Give it back," Brandon sneered. "Make me." He grabbed the journal with both hands, ready to tear it in half. Emily's body moved before thought could catch up. 8 years of training fired at once. She caught his wrist, pivoted, dropped her hips, and Brandon Whitaker, the golden boy of Crawford, flew through the air like a rag doll, landing hard breath knocked clean from his chest. Phones recorded every angle. Silence swept the room. Emily stood still, hands open, breathing steady. Her shirt torn, her eyes unblinking. No rage, no apology. Only precision. Only truth. And within hours, the truth would go viral. But the real story, the deeper one, had only just begun. Dean Caldwell called her in the next morning. His tone was measured, almost rehearsed. The kind of calm that isn't about peace, but control. He gestured for Emily to sit, folding his hands over a thick manila folder that bore her name. "Emily," he began. "This is serious." She sat straight, her hands in her lap. She didn't blink. "I agree." He cleared his throat. "Mr. Whitaker suffered a mild concussion. His family's attorneys have expressed concern." Of course they had. "Your background in martial arts raises some complicated questions," he added. "Advanced training. Competitive record." So it was out, the truth finally known. "Self-defense isn't the same when someone has combat experience," the dean went on. "You do understand that Emily kept her voice even. Do you understand that I was thrown to the floor first, that he ripped my shirt, that I asked him to stop twice on camera?" She reached into her backpack, pulled out the journal, her backup files, a flash drive, a printout of the video time-stamped with audio transcript. "I came prepared," she said. "Because I knew you'd come prepared to protect him." There was a pause, a long one. Outside, the world had changed overnight. The video of Brandon hitting the floor had gone viral, not just among students but the public. #Crawford Justice was trending. Martial arts instructors across the country had praised Emily's technique not for its force, but for its restraint. Even former Olympians called it a masterclass in defensive discipline. The footage made one thing clear. Emily had used the minimum force necessary, and she hadn't thrown the first blow. But inside the office, none of that mattered yet. "Emily," Dean Caldwell finally said, "this is bigger than just you and Brandon. His father sits on the board, and there are expectations." Her eyes didn't move. "With all due respect, sir, expectations are what let him get away with it this long." He exhaled, tired. "We'll conduct an internal review, but I suggest you keep a low profile until then." She stood. "I've kept a low profile for months. Look where it got me." As she walked out, students in the hallway looked at her differently. Not with pity, but something closer to awe, or maybe hope. In the days that followed, more voices came forward. A sophomore girl shared how Brandon once pinned her against a locker for refusing to dance with him. A freshman boy admitted he'd dropped out of an extracurricular because Whitaker and the pack made fun of his stutter. Stories poured in, some whispered, some shouted. Nina Patel, student body president, organized an open forum. Emily didn't speak. She listened. She took notes. She made room. But the Whitakers didn't stay silent. A letter appeared on the school website, unsigned but clearly written by lawyers. It called the incident an unfortunate escalation and implied Emily had a history of volatility from previous training environments. The PR war had begun. Soon, a rumor spread that she might be expelled not for what she did but for who she had once been. A child prodigy. A girl who'd been pushed out of judo circuits after her family collapsed under medical debt, as if poverty made her dangerous, as if discipline made her threatening. At home, her mother wept over the newspaper not from shame, but fear. Emily held her hand. "I've fought on mats. I can fight in rooms now." She emailed civil rights attorneys. She spoke to Title IX experts. She contacted former judo coaches to verify her record, her restraint. Everything was documented. Everything backed up. She knew now Crawford wouldn't protect her, but the truth, the whole truth, just might. And this time she wasn't backing away from the fight. Not with gloves, not with bows, but with law. Because what had started as humiliation was about to become precedent. December 10th, 1 week since the cafeteria. Emily woke up early as she always did. Not out of habit, but preparation. She had learned long ago that you don't wait for fairness, you build it. By now, she had reviewed every version of the video, labeled every frame, time-stamped every insult, every shove, every refusal to back down. She had backup drives stored in 3 places and a private Google Drive shared with 2 attorneys willing to represent her pro bono. But, deep down, she knew Brandon Whitaker wasn't finished. Boys like him didn't lose quietly. Not when they'd been told all their lives that consequences were for other people. She was right. That morning, someone leaked her judo tournament records to a conservative media blog, twisting her into a trained aggressor, a ticking time bomb who had preyed on a confused young man. The blog called her dangerous. The school stayed silent. But Emily smiled, because they'd just taken the bait. That week, she filed a formal Title IX complaint, complete with documentation, video evidence, and a timeline of administrative inaction going back months. She sent it not just to the school board, but directly to the Department of Education. It triggered an immediate investigation. One Crawford Academy couldn't suppress or spin. By Thursday, reporters were calling the school. One news outlet requested to interview Emily. She declined. She didn't need to tell her story, the facts already had. But it was Friday afternoon when the moment came. The final twist. The moment Brandon tried to reclaim power one last time. She was in the parking lot just past sundown, packing a box of returned library books into her trunk. That's when she heard the crunch of gravel behind her. Brandon wasn't alone. 2 older boys flanked him. College age, athletic. They didn't wear school colors, they wore blank expressions. Emily didn't speak. She didn't run. She'd parked beneath the only working security camera in that lot. She'd already tested the lens the day before. The red light blinked steadily. Brandon stepped forward, face bruised but proud. "You embarrassed me," he said. "You lied. Twisted everything. My father's not going to let this go." Emily's voice was calm. "Then he'll have to take it up with the Department of Education and the police." One of the men moved. Quick, professional. The kind of movement that didn't come from schoolyard fights. Emily didn't hesitate. She redirected him into the side of her car. The second man lunged, she dropped low, pivoted, and swept his legs out in one motion. Brandon pulled something from his jacket, a knife. The sound it made as it cut through the cold air was soft, the sound of desperation. Of a boy no longer sure of his world. But Emily didn't flinch. She grabbed his wrist, twisted, and disarmed him with surgical precision. The blade clattered to the asphalt. Brandon screamed. Sirens howled in the distance. Someone had called 911. Emily stood over them not with rage, not with triumph, but with clarity, with the posture of someone who had waited long enough. She pulled her phone from her pocket, showed him the live stream app running, uploading everything to a remote cloud. "Your confession," she said quietly, "was just sent to the federal investigator, along with this attack." Brandon froze. All that money, all that influence gone in a heartbeat. Later, investigators would find texts between Brandon and his father, instructions, money transfers, veiled threats. A coordinated effort to silence her, and thanks to Emily's calm, her readiness, her patience, everything was documented. What began as a cafeteria scandal had become something far bigger, a federal Title IX case, a criminal conspiracy, and a school once untouchable forced into full public accountability. It had taken months. Discipline, silence, precision. But now Emily had more than truth. She had proof, and that would be the beginning of justice. The police lights painted Crawford Academy's brick walls red and blue that night, colors the school wasn't used to wearing. Officers escorted Brandon Whitaker and the 2 hired men off campus in handcuffs. Emily stood to the side, arms crossed, not triumphant, not shaken, just still. Students watched from dorm windows. Phones captured every angle. Rumors spread like fire. Brandon brought a knife. She took them all down herself. She streamed the whole thing live. But none of it was rumor. It was all true. And now no one could look away. By Monday morning, the story had gone national. Scholarship student disarms attack catches campus elite in cover-up. Crawford, under federal investigation. Girl with a throw brings down a dynasty. The footage from the parking lot, her calm voice. Brandon's threats, the clean disarm, played on every major news network. Crawford's administration scrambled. They issued a public statement, vague and legal-sounding, promising a full review of events. But it was too late for damage control. Emily had made sure of that. The Department of Education opened a civil rights investigation into Crawford's Title IX handling. The district attorney filed criminal charges: assault, conspiracy, illegal weapon possession, and attempted intimidation of a witness. And then something happened that Emily hadn't expected. Support flooded in. Emails, letters, handwritten notes from students she had never spoken to. You gave me courage. I thought I had to take it. Now I know I don't. You didn't just fight for you fought for all of us. One morning, Nina Patel stood at the front of the student hall and said simply, "We owe her more than applause." A petition began demanding the resignation of Dean Caldwell, transparency in disciplinary actions, and a permanent student advocacy board. Within 72 hours, it had over 900 signatures, including the children of some of the school's largest donors. Even some teachers stepped forward. Quietly at first, but then louder. One had seen Brandon mock a student's accent. Another had reported the locker incident months ago and been ignored. Silence had protected Brandon. Now, truth was breaking the dam. But amid all the public outcry, the most unexpected confrontation was still to come. It happened in the smallest place, the back of her mother's bakery. Emily was wiping the counters when she heard the bell above the door. She looked up and froze. Standing there was William Whitaker Sr., Brandon's father. Crisp suit, silver cufflinks, the kind of man who could ruin careers with a single phone call. He held no briefcase, no entourage, just a box in his hands. "May I?" he asked. Emily nodded slowly. He set the box down, opened it. Inside were printed documents, official-looking. "I came to offer something," he said. "And maybe to understand something." She crossed her arms, waited. "My son," he said carefully, "is not the boy I thought he was. You showed me that." Emily didn't reply. "I taught him to win," he continued, "but I forgot to teach him how to lose, or how to respect those who never had the same tools." He looked around the bakery, the flour dust, the handwritten signs, the trays of bread. "My family built buildings at Crawford," he said, "but you built something bigger with nothing but will." Then he lifted one of the documents. "This is a full academic scholarship," he said. "Wherever you choose to go, law school, undergrad, anywhere. No conditions, no strings, just acknowledgement that we failed and you didn't." Emily stared at him, searching for the angle, but there wasn't one. Just tired eyes. And, perhaps, a man who had finally seen his reflection in his son's fall. She took the papers slowly. "Why? Because," he said, voice quiet, "you gave my son the one thing I never could, a consequence, and a chance to be better." He turned to leave. Paused. "You didn't destroy him, Emily. You woke him up." And with that he stepped into the cold. The world had seen the fight. The law had started its wheels. But here, in the back of a bakery, Emily received something no court could offer acknowledgement, and a door not given but earned opened wide. Spring arrived at Crawford Academy beneath skies softer than the months that had come before. Snow melted. So did silence. And what once stood untouched, the rules, the routines, the reverence for wealth, had begun to crack like thawing ice. Emily Rivera didn't walk differently, but people stepped aside now, not out of fear, but out of respect. She had changed more than a narrative. She had changed a culture. The Board of Trustees held emergency sessions behind closed doors, but not even mahogany paneling could keep out a federal investigation. Policies were audited. Staff were replaced. Dean Caldwell resigned for personal reasons and left without ceremony. Crawford issued a new code of conduct, one that included mandatory Title IX, training student advocacy representation, and anonymous reporting lines with third-party oversight. For the first time, justice wasn't just a poster on a hallway wall. Emily didn't speak at the assemblies. She didn't post online. She stayed focused on her classes and her plans. She accepted the scholarship from William Whitaker Sr., but only under her terms. "I want it directed to an independent foundation," she said. "It will fund education for students from working-class backgrounds, not just at Crawford, but anywhere that closed doors to them." He agreed. Quietly. Completely. The foundation was named the Rivera Initiative. Emily declined the offer to put her name on the building. "Names on plaques don't protect people," she said. "Policies do." The initiative offered counseling, tutoring, and legal support. Within weeks, students from public schools in New Mexico, Detroit, and Baltimore submitted applications. Emily read every one. Meanwhile, Brandon Whitaker disappeared from the public eye. Some said he transferred. Others said he took a gap year. But what few knew, and Emily never told, was that he'd written her a letter. It wasn't flowery. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. "I hated you for showing me who I was," he wrote. "But I needed it. Thank you." And he signed it not with arrogance, but with humility, Brandon trying to be better. Months passed. Emily graduated from Crawford not as valedictorian, though she earned it, but by choice. She declined the podium. "The story isn't about how I finished," she told Nina privately. "It's about what I start next." And what she started became something bigger than anyone expected. She was accepted into Columbia Law on full merit, backed by the Rivera Initiative, and countless letters of recommendation not for her grades, but for her grit. By her second year, she co-founded a student legal aid clinic focused on school discrimination cases. By the time she graduated, her name was already on landmark filings in 3 states. And 1 year after passing the bar, she opened the doors to her own firm, Rivera Legal. Justice for the overlooked. The office was modest. A converted brownstone with creaky floors and the smell of coffee always lingering. But the work inside was mighty. Her first clients weren't CEOs or corporations, they were teenagers, janitors, cafeteria workers. People who'd been unheard too long. Her team grew young lawyers, many first-generation college graduates drawn by her mission protect those the system pretended not to see. And in a quiet office down the hall, the firm's communications director, a once arrogant boy with a second chance, typed away at a blog post about restorative justice. Brandon hadn't just joined her firm. He had joined her fight. It hadn't come easy. He worked without a title the first year. He read. He listened. He apologized. Not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent ones. Emily never forgot what he'd done. But she chose to believe in what he was becoming. They didn't fall in love overnight. But love, like healing, takes its time. And so, 5 years after that day in the cafeteria, the day she was thrown into humiliation and he was thrown into reckoning, they stood side by side under a courthouse oak tree. There were no tuxedos, no orchestras, just handwritten vows, a borrowed ring, and a promise to never stay silent, to never forget where they came from, and to always stand even when standing alone. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Emily unlocked the office. Sunlight filtered through the windows of Rivera Legal, casting soft gold across shelves lined with legal texts and hand-painted notes from former clients. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did one read." Another, in shaky handwriting, simply said, "You made them listen." She poured coffee just like her mother used to, strong, simple, and without pretense. On her desk sat a letter, handwritten, no return address, just a name inside. Sophia, age 14. Dear Ms. Rivera, I watched your video in class today. The one where you didn't yell, where you stood still. I used to think strong meant loud. But now I know it can be quiet too. Yesterday, when a teacher told me I should stay silent, I didn't. I spoke, and they heard me. Thank you for being brave first. Emily folded the letter slowly, pressed it to her heart. She had never wanted to be famous. She had only wanted an education, a future, a chance to matter. Now she carried more than her own dreams. She carried theirs, too, the unseen, the unheard, the underestimated. Behind her, the wall bore no trophies, no framed degrees. Just one photo her at 18 standing in a torn shirt surrounded by students who had once been afraid, and now stood taller. That image had become more than a symbol. It had become a beginning, because one girl chose to rise when it was easier to disappear. One girl chose to stand when everyone else stayed seated. And because of that, a system changed. A legacy broke. A future opened. Emily once won medals on mats. Now she won something greater: policy justice and quiet revolutions. And the boy who once tried to break her. He made her coffee every morning, left post-it notes with bad puns, and dedicated every blog post to one idea. Redemption is real if we choose it. So, if you're listening now, if you've ever been told you're too small to matter, too poor, to belong, too soft to win, remember this: strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, waits, watches, and then, at the right moment, it throws. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it. Tell someone who needs to hear it. And never forget, a simple woman can change everything.